Good morning. This is the Team Woods podcast, and we're here with Miss Gladys Parker for an episode of Zion Hill Memory. How are you doing today, Miss Parker?
I'm well, thank you.
Let me just start off by asking, how long have you been a member of Zion Hill Baptist Church?
Well, I'll say this. Since I was 3 years old, I was at the church, Zion Hill.
Lifelong church member.
Yes. I was with my mother in the organization. My uncles, my mothers, my aunts, when they organized the church, it was organized in our home.
Oh, really? So you're part of the original group that put the church together then?
Yes.
So what do you recall about those early days?
With my mother, with the organization, we were in a neighborhood. That's who was in the church. I can remember a lot of those people that were in the organization, like Mrs. Shavers, the Ingrams, Brother Charlie White, and the Garners, who were, that's my family, the Garners, and, you know, different ones that I can remember. I also remember Reverend Sam Hudson. I always called him Uncle Sam. He lived next door. I remember him very well because he was a help to me while I was going to school.
So your whole family started at Zion Hill?
That's right. The Garner family.
So what's the earliest service that you can recall?
The earliest service that I can remember, I don't remember Reverend Baker at all, only what my mother told me. The earliest I can remember is when Reverend Taylor was the pastor. When our Christmas programs, we all, with the children, we always had a big Christmas program, and we would march with our candles. And the thing I remember most was marching with the candles. My brother was right behind me, and he set my hair on fire.
Whoa!
And Mrs. White was the one that, you know, it was dark, and we had the candles, and Mrs. White got up and grabbed my hair and put it out, but it never stopped the program.
Hey. You can't stop the show. You can't stop the show.
Yeah. Back in those days, the way they raised money, you know, money was very scarce back in there. I came through the Depression. And back in those days, money was scarce. And the way they built the church that was on the corner of Lafayette and Oakland is the men were working in the mill. You know, they weren't making a lot of money. They would buy the blocks. Every man would, payday come, he would buy so many blocks. And that's how the church on the corner got built. And that's where we were. I was a grown woman with children when we left from that one building.
Okay, to move to the building they're in now?
The area on Jefferson. And it only came about because of urban renewal. And when they came through to change the roads, then we had to move, and we found the church up on the hill.
So how has the neighborhood changed over the years where it is now?
There is no houses. Well, people are not like they used to be. Everybody knew everybody back in those days. And if you needed, somebody else was right there with what you needed. And neighbors didn't talk about each other like they do today. It was the houses are gone. Just about all of them are gone now. And the people have scattered. And it's very few of the original still living. I know of some of the younger people, I'd say my age, just a few that started out with the church. But being as old as I am, you know, it's not very many of us left.
What's your most memorable service that you witnessed at Zion Hill?
I always enjoyed Christmas service because they always had it sunrise service. They came to church at sunrise to thank God for His blessings. That was just Christmas. Okay, and they did it again. Lovely. They did again on Easter. Especially on Easter, we saw the sunrise. And it wasn't children staying at home. As Mom and Daddy bringing their children with them.
How many kids do you have?
I had 5. I've lost 2 of them.
Sorry to hear that.
My oldest 2. I lost one last year. Mm-hmm.
My condolences on your loss. So you would bring the kids. You would bring the kids to church and stuff like that. There was no stay at home.
No. And another thing, what they don't have as much as it used to be in the evening on Sundays, we children weren't allowed to, we weren't on our own. Sunday evening, 6 o'clock, what we called the BYPU at that time, Young People's Bible Teaching Union. And we always had to be to that. No movies, not on Sunday.
And what was that? Was that just Bible study?
Bible study, yeah. Mm-hmm.
How big the crowd did you get?
Mostly the children, young people. Mm-hmm. And the church used to thrive on they sold a lot of dinners. On Saturdays, fish fries. That was the money coming into the church.
Oh, so every Friday you guys would have a fish fry? Yeah,
fish fries. Mm-hmm. Mostly it was at somebody's house. We always did things at somebody's house because back in that day we didn't have the gas furnaces. You had to make a fire to heat up the whole church. And they didn't want to heat up the church just for the fish fry. Man, it always went to somebody's house.
I wanted to ask you, you've been with us for 90 years now. I imagine in that time you've picked up a lesson or two. And I wanted to see what 3 pieces of advice you would give to younger people today as it relates to finding peace and happiness.
First, you've got to find the Lord. You're not going to have it because there's always something coming up. You've got to find the Lord. Let Him into your life first. And a lot of young people think if they let the Lord in, then they have to give up everything out in the world. You don't. The Lord leads you. You get to the point where going to that beer garden is not interesting to you. I can remember I stopped dancing. I used to love to dance. And I stopped dancing when I was married. I stopped dancing when I was 22 years old. The music got too loud. So that's the way the Lord works. You've got to find Him first. And that way you have peace, as long as you let Him lead you.
Amen, amen. So what are another couple of pieces of advice that you give after you found the Lord?
Be consistent in what you're doing, and then help those behind you. If you don't help those young people behind you, you're not going to progress at all. It's a difficult thing today because children have grown up where they don't listen to older people anymore. They old and fogey. If it's not taught in the home, I was consistent, not just going to church. We were consistent with teaching our children at home. Respect. And children, it's not a lot of respect anymore.
So for pieces of advice, I've got follow the Lord, be consistent, and helping those behind you. I think those are great pieces of advice.
Yeah.
And finally, so what's your secret to living a long and fulfilling life?
I've said a whole lot of things about it. It's not hereditary because my mother died. My father died a young man. My mother died at 68. My brother died at 68. My sister died at 50. And it's not hereditary. I am next to the youngest child of my mother's. I'm next to the youngest. And now my baby sister died. She's been gone by 4 years now. She did get 80. She did get to 80. I don't know what it is that has nothing but the Lord that has kept me here. As my daughter always tells me, Mama, you need it. That's all she ever tells me. You're needed. You still have work to do. And then not only living a long life, I'm not sick. Thank God for that. I can still remember. I'm still mama. They let me be the mother. You know how when the kids get to a certain age. Right here, I have my oldest son is next to my oldest son is here. The oldest one I have alive is here every day. Every day he's here with me. He's 66 years old. And
wow.
There's my other son is in North Carolina. Once a month, he's here. He takes care of all of my affairs. And then there's my youngest, who's in Columbus. She'll be here tomorrow.
So keeping family close, that's important.
Yes. And if they're taught right, it's not because you need them so much. They want to be here.
I think they got a lot from you.
Well, yeah, they want to be here. I talk to my daughter. I talk to her 3 or 4 times a day. She works. She calls me in the morning before she go to work. She calls me on her lunch break. She calls me on her way home from work and before she go to bed.
Oh, that's sweet. That is very sweet. It's good to keep in touch, keep close contact. So
yes,
that's the secret, keeping family close and being needed and showing that you needed and that you need people.
Yes, and that's why I imagine that's why my daughter said, "Mama, you need it." I'm close with my grandchildren and my great-grands. They calling. You know, a lot of times grandparents, half the time you don't know what children you have. But mine are close.
I can tell why. You're a very lovely lady. I wanted to just thank you again for sharing a few recollections with me.
Yes, okay. But here's one other thing they may not have told you. My husband was a minister. He was under Reverend at Zion Hill.
Mm-hmm.
I had to leave the church for a little while, back and forth, because he pastored.
Oh, a different church.
Yeah.
Okay. What was your husband's name?
Leslie Parker, Reverend Leslie Parker.
Okay.
What
years was he pastor of Zion Hill?
He wasn't the pastor. We were just members of the church. He was called to another church. He got a.
Okay.
He was called to another church. But that didn't stop me from running home.
Oh boy! All right. Well, I appreciate you taking a few minutes with me today. I'm going to wrap us up right here, but perhaps maybe we can do it again.
Call me anytime. As you get older, you go back into your history. You go back into your life. And that's what I do a lot now. My mind goes backwards. My growing up and things that I went through in my early age, the mistakes I made.
Well, let's talk about that next time. We're going to have a deep conversation when we start talking about it, because I can share some too.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, thank you again for spending the time with me.
I've left out a lot. Anything you want to ask me, and if I can answer it, I will.
Okay. I'll hold you to that. Thank you.
All right.
All right.